Hey folks, welcome back to Top Africa. This is Chris coming to you live. Sorry about that little goofy screw up there. That didn't work the way it was supposed to. Today's special feature talking about growing up in the Belgian Congo. Let me just let you know in advance before we get started, this is not a pro or anti-colonial period show. This is a program simply about folks who grew up in the Congo, relating their experiences at that time in the Belgian Congo. It's an era that's past. This is not people pining for a colonial era. This is not people promoting it. And this is nothing against the country of the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's a completely different entity. This is during the Belgian Congo period. Two folks who grew up as young kids there and talk about their experiences. Nigel's going to talk to us about the time frame from 1953 to 1960, and Erica will talk to us from about 1950, almost exactly the same time frame. They're both going to join us. So I'm going to bring them in now, and these are my guests today, Erica and, well, before I do it, before I bring them, hang on, before I bring them, let me just put this up back on the screen here. So this was, that's an ecclesiastical map for those who don't recognize it from what was then the Belgian Congo. These are the districts broken down for church. As you can see, these aren't the provinces necessarily, but it's a pretty good map. It has a good breakdown. You can see how large the country is and how it's broken down in different places. And we're going to cover, I think that Elizabethville, which is where Erica grew up, is in the Benedictines and Salesians ecclesiastical district, and then the Leopoldville, which is today Kinshasa, that's where the Jesuits were at, and that's where Nigel grew up. So we're going to talk to both of them in just a second. I'll bring the map up periodically, and also bring up photographs from time to time. So we're going to get started with that. Let me welcome in my guest. Let me hang on a second here. Okay, I need to get rid of some things in this stream because there's way too much stuff here. There we go. All right, hey, welcome folks. You can go ahead and turn your mics on. All right, so how's it?
Bonjour, mes amis.
Hey, look at it. Nigel says hello to everybody in French, and Erica says hi in English.
Yeah, bonjour.
Welcome. Well, guys, this is, as I said, we talked about this is just relating your experiences growing up. It's a different era. And if anyone else grew up in the area, we're happy to host them later on, no matter what their ethnicity is, if they want to talk about their experiences. But this is about your experiences growing up. And so with that, let's go ahead and I'll ask Erica. So we're going to talk, you were born in Katanga, is that right?
That's right. Yes, in Elizabethville, which is now Lubumbashi. I was born in a mission hospital on a very hot December afternoon. Yeah.
Was it a Friday?
Just after a tropical storm. I think so.
Well, I was born on a Friday. That's why I ask.
I think I am a Friday's child. Yes.
Okay. Cool beans. And Nigel, what about yourself? Where were you born? And were you born in the Congo, or did you arrive there?
No, I arrived there. I was born in Belgium in 1953 in a little town called Rosiers in Belgium.
Okay. And so Erica was in Katanga, which is in the very southern part of the country, big mining area. If you see that movie, the recent movie, The Siege of Jadoville, you'll see a depiction of an Irish United Nations peacekeeping company that was left to their own devices and abandoned there and surrounded by Katangan troops loyal to Moise Tshombe. And you'll see that. But that's the region we're talking about for Erica. You are in what today is known as Kinshasa, which is the capital of then of the Belgian Congo and today of the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's a very different situation. You're next to this massive river. Very different. I imagine the weather's probably a little bit different too, because there's quite a geographical spread there. Can you tell us a little bit about Leopoldville or Kinshasa today?
Who's going to go first?
No, I'm asking about that. Then I'll get back to Erica. We're just go.
One of the unique features of Leopoldville or the Congo is that every afternoon you were assured of a thunderstorm. Around 3:00, 4:30, you would have a storm. So that was the Congo.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the same in Elizabethville.
Okay, so you had lots of rain on both ends. Okay, but you're next to this massive river. I mean, the Congo River is huge.
Yeah, it's incredibly big. Huge.
But at Leopoldville or Kinshasa, what was it like there? It's slow flowing. There's no rapids or anything like that there.
No, only further down. But where we were, it was pretty slow and it was quite wide. And all the boats came up from there. A lot of the trade through the rest of Africa went through there. Well, the Congo at that period.
Sure.
But also, when we go through the photographs, one thing I'd like to say to the listeners or to the viewers is that there's a misconception about the Congo in that period, is that everybody thinks it was wild and it was like the jungle. In actual fact, it was a very, very modern city. And you'll see that when you look through the photographs. Mm-hmm. The thing is that was quite amazing is you would drive down the boulevard, which is a main street, you know what a boulevard is. And then the minute you've left the boulevard, you were almost in the jungle.
Yeah.
It was an amazing place. It wasn't as if you're driving from here, from Johannesburg, Pretoria, and it's a highway and you've got all these buildings and businesses. There it was completely different. It was very congested. You had a city, and then outside was all your villages and where the people lived, et cetera, et cetera. It's a bit different today, but that's what it was like at that point.
So in Katanga, down in Elizabethville, or today Lubumbashi, what was that like? Was that built up at all? Or was it more of a provincial small town, Erica?
No, it was much the same. And also, I don't know if it was the same as Nigel, but we had every Sunday, we had like an orchestra or something like that playing, and we'd go for walks. It was like a boulevard as well, and yeah, quite civilized.
So a mission. Sorry, go ahead, Nigel.
So we had the equivalent to German Umpa-Bands, yeah, and they play the trumpet all the time, yeah, with good music.
Well, thank you.
But that was a feature.
Thank you for sharing that, Sergeant Schultz. I know nothing.
Yeah, it is on Soden, not Schultz.
But Erica, so in Elizabethville, you were born in a mission hospital. You said, is that just coincidence? Were your parents missionaries?
No, well, my mother came from Belgium. She did nursing in Belgium, and she went down to the Congo to go and study tropical diseases. Mm-hmm. And I think she probably worked at this little hospital. It was run by nuns. So I was probably delivered by nuns. I don't know. I can't remember that part. Yeah, but it was... I think it was probably a very good little hospital. There were complications, but I survived. So here we are.
And your father, was he in mining or business or?
No, he studied in Switzerland in Lausanne, and he was an accountant and a chartered accountant. And he worked for Talon Congo. He was their accountant. And I think he was part of the, the whole business conglomeration there in Elizabethville at that time, which Chombi was also part of.
Yeah. So that era there, now I know what Leopoldville was like. There were a lot of white folks living in Leopoldville. I don't know how large the white population was in Elizabethville, but for you, was it normal to see lots of white folks around, or was it mostly black Africans that you saw on the streets? Erica?
No, it was a mixture. Okay. It was very much like South Africa is now. It was a mixture.
Do you have any particularly fond memories of Elizabethville? I mean, something that stands out, other than this Sunday concert thing you've referred to and going for walks?
Well, we had a very big garden, that I can remember, with bananas growing and monkeys, and it was quite wild. And also my best friend was Chombi's daughter, and I used to go and visit her regularly in there, and he would take us into the jungle I think it probably was members of his family, a tribal village in the jungle. And I was assimilated into their culture, learning to interpret the jungle drums and all that. It was quite fun in those days when I first started to learn that, yeah.
Well, I mean, You left it, unfortunately, a very young age because of things falling apart later on. But were you able to, or did you ever stay in touch with his daughter, or have you been in touch with her in the years? Yeah, that's what I figured, because you were very young. So if you'd been a teenager, it might have been a different story. But at that age, yeah. Wow. So rain every day. Was it hot? Was it hot? Did you have seasons, or is it pretty much standard the same year round?
It was hotter.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to get... I think it was just the humidity that changed, with the heat as well. And mosquito nets, we always had to have mosquito nets around our beds. Mm-hmm. And not just hanging over, but tucked underneath the mattress.
Oh, mosquitoes are tricky little buggers. They know how to get to you if you don't have it tucked under, that's for sure. Now, okay, well, since you mentioned that, obviously there's a reason for that. It's not simply not to be bit. It's to not get malaria. That's why people have the nets.
Yeah.
So, was there a lot of malaria? Do you remember malaria? Did you get it when you were a child?
No, I didn't get it. Did you, Nigel?
No, I didn't get it at all.
Interesting.
I got sunstroke. So, and also I became allergic to, the palm trees in the Congo. There's that little white juice that comes out of it. I'm allergic to that, and I get terrible asthma attacks with it. So I have to be careful when I go down to Natal in those areas when there's palm trees and there's that white juice that comes out that attacks my chest.
Well, that's nasty. I stay away from it to begin with, so allergic or not. Allergic or not.
No, yeah. Congo was a hot place. It was really a hot place, but you would work in the morning and then you would have a siesta until about, that's from our family side, until about 4:30, and then you would carry on for as long as you could after that. Because it was just really too hot and humid. It was terrible. Terrible, but as a kid, you didn't really know anything different. It's only once I'd left the Congo and came to South Africa and went back to Belgium for a while that you realized how hot the place really is.
Well, I mean, exactly. I mean, it's people who are like adults who move to a place that's cold and they experience snow and sub-zero temperature. Like, oh, this is terrible. Like, and when you're kids, you're just out there playing in it, getting all soaking wet, and your hands are red, and you're freezing, and you don't pay, and you never mind to it. You just don't know any better. It's what you know. So yeah, I can understand. I can relate to that. Erica, when your family lived there, what did you guys eat? I mean, was it a European style diet, or were you eating local things or a mix of things? Do you recall?
A mix of things, and I was introduced to manioc and cassava, which I loved. I absolutely loved. You don't have to eat it.
I don't even want to look at it. Cassava, no thank you.
I don't know, but I would eat that now. But as a child, I didn't mind, and it was also the way they prepared it. When I was with Chombi's family or friends or whatever in the village, it was total different kind of diet and lifestyle. And the thunderstorm at 4:00 every afternoon, which cooled down everything after that and made it a lot more bearable.
It would, but now let me ask this question, because Liberia was like this. It would rain, it would be brutally humid and hot. It would rain, everything would cool down, but then it would steam off, and it would get just as bad within a short period of time. Is that how it was there?
Basically, yes. Yeah, and of course, we didn't have air conditioners in those days.
Aircon? What's aircon? Aircon's down the window.
No, you slept with your windows open, and you didn't have pajamas. So you just slept with however you want to sleep, but you were 99.9% naked. Put it mildly.
All right, this is the TMI section of the program, folks. Turn your volume down. Just to look the other way. Tell the children to go to the next room. No, but seriously. So Nigel, what was your family doing in the Congo? What were your parents up to down there?
My dad met my mom just after the war, and he got mustered out of the Navy.
Hold on, folks. Okay, for those of you wondering, no, this is not the Iraq War. No, this is not the Gulf War. This is not Vietnam. This is not Korea. This is the war, the Second World War. Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah. He'd served in the Navy for the whole period of the war.
Oh, dear God, another Navy guy. Jeez.
I will sort you out, my dear boy. Anyway, that's how my dad used to talk. Anyway, yeah. I remember, just to interject here, he sent me to England because when I came here, I couldn't speak English. I only spoke French. So he sent me to England to learn to speak the Queen's English because he was very, very English, and because he was an officer in the Navy. So when I got back from England after spending a year there at a private school, or what they call a public school, he sat me in the chair and he said, "Right, my boy, let me hear you speak the Queen's English." And I said, "What?" Anyway, having said that, my dad after the Navy, he married my mother, of course, obviously. You did in those days. And then he got a job with a company called IGCB, International Geographic du Congo Belge, which is a company that did aerial photography and mapping for the military and for geographic purposes. And he was invited to go to the Congo to run one of the sections there, which he did. And this is how we landed up in the Congo. And his whole period of his time, we lived in the Congo. He worked for that company. So on the first picture, you'll see there's one of the aircraft, which was a de Havilland Dove, which was used for aerial photography, or as the thing with flying in the Congo, you don't fly late afternoons because of the storms. You flew in the morning. So they had 3 airplanes. They had the Dove, which transported all the
Let me put that on the screen right now. I'm gonna bring that on the screen on top of us here. So just a second here. All right, there you go, folks. You can see it. That's the first aircraft on there.
Yeah,
and that,
you can see the
ICGB on the side on the fuselage. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So that transported the workers and the members of the company to the various places, Bukavu, where else did we go to? Matadi and all sorts of other places. And then the main 2 other airplanes, which were DACs, which the old C-47s, which were converted to aircraft with huge cameras, which we'll get to later. Mm-hmm. So we traveled a lot around the Congo, but our base was Leopoldville.
Okay.
So that was his job. And he was head of that particular division.
Now, before we go any further here, I've got it up on the screen. So it looks like the picture below that, because I've got full screen now, so 2 pictures up each page. So it looks like that might be your parents. Your father was an Englishman. Your mother, I'm guessing, was Belgian. How the hell did you get a German surname? Please fill us in on that one.
That is not my dad. That's my mom.
Sorry. Okay.
It's fine. That's my mom. The reason why I put that picture there, because that's a very well-known personality in South Africa, or was. Mm-hmm. His brother was. Okay. His brother was. This guy's name was Mike Frost. His brother was. Oh gosh, it's just slipped my mind now. Anyway, he flew for the Cheetah Squadron in Korea.
Okay.
Starting in Spitfires and what have you. Now, this fella, him and a few other guys started Trek Airways years ago. But he was a pilot for my dad at that period of time. So that what you see there is my mom and this guy called Mike Frost. But what's interesting, if you look at the furniture, it's the furniture of the period. So it was all very modern for that. So this is where the illusion of the Congo being jungle all the time. It was very, very modern for its time. Anyway, that's what it's about.
Okay, so that is your mother, though.
Yes, that's my mother.
Is she Belgian?
She's Belgian, and my father's British. So where the German name comes from is, I really don't know, but I'm told we originated.
I don't know, but I'll just make something up for you, Chris.
Why not? From Germanic tribe called the Sordens, or Bath-Sorden, or whatever that is. And that's where the name originates from. Now, there's a lot of Sordens in America and in Ireland and in England, so it's not unique. It's just that you don't hear a lot of that particular surname. And it is German in origin.
Yeah, no, you mentioned Bad. It's spelled B-A-D, but pronounced like bat, like Butt. Butt is a German word for bath. So like the Roman bath. So you have Bad Kreuznach, Bad Soden. There's a lot of them. So Bad Reichenhall. Those are all places that had thermal baths where the Romans introduced that in Germany. For the parts they controlled on the other side of the Rhine. So, interesting. So let's talk a little more about these photos then. So let's go to the next page. And here we have a cockpit photo, and then it looks like a bombardier's position with an oxygen mask on. What's that all about?
Okay, that's my dad. Now, if you look at the bottom corner, the right-hand corner, near the middle, that's the camera that was used to do photographs.
Okay.
Just to do these huge 8x10 negatives, topography photography. Now, he's lying on a mattress there, because remember, this aircraft, all these aircraft at that time were supercharged. Yeah. So they had to really fly at high altitude, and you see he's wearing an oxygen mask, which is higher than 12,500 feet. Yep. So they're flying at around 25,000 feet, taking photographs. He's lying on a mattress there, and if you look, he's got blankets all over him because it's bloody freezing up there.
Yep.
And he guided the aircraft and guided the camera where the pictures had to be taken. So you see the oxygen mask there, the mattress in which he lied on, and the blankets over him. So that's what it was all about in those days. And the cockpit view there is Mike Frost flying, the co-pilot's flying at that point, as you can see. But that was just the cockpit of that era of the C-47.
Sure. Yeah, C-47 Dakota, amazing aircraft. 6 or 7 of them still in service with the South African Air Force. They had 9, but they've managed to crash 3 of them in the last decade under the ANC. Yeah. But amazing aircraft, now 70 years old, still in the air. Very popular platform. There's a company, Buffalo Air, up in Canada that flies these things. They had this Ice Pilots or something like that was this television reality show. Really awesome stuff. I actually know the son up there, Mikey Bryan, who is now is going to take over from his father. But it's the C-47 is an amazing aircraft. this was quite the setup there. Of course, for folks who are not familiar with aviation, when you go over 10,000 feet, you need to have a pressurized aircraft normally because of the lack of oxygen and the air pressure up there. So that must have been tough duty for your dad, sitting in the back of this thing with that camera, freezing like that. It had to be a real challenge at over 12,000 feet, I think you said it was.
Yeah. He just a little bit of a history about him as well, which I have later on. You'll see I don't know if you want to go further down. There's a biplane in there. If you want to display
that. That far ahead, but let me jump.
Let's not worry about that. We'll get to it.
We'll do the next one real quick, and then we'll cover some more things. So, the next one here looks like there's a hangar there with I see at least 4 tails coming out of it. Yeah, and then 2 folks standing below one of the aircraft.
Yeah, they were aircraft engineers. They worked on the engines.
Wait. Hold on. I've been told by competent, accomplished authorities that black people weren't allowed to do anything in Africa. They were denied. How could they possibly be engineers if black people were denied education and couldn't do anything? By the way, speaking of which, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, the South Africa's Minister of Health, attended schools to become a medical doctor during apartheid in South Africa and became a medical practitioner during apartheid in South Africa, and practiced medicine during apartheid in South Africa. But I thought that blacks were denied education. But anyway, just sorry, not to. We're not talking politics. But how do these folks?
It's fine.
How do these folks wind up being engineers? What's the deal with that?
Well, the company trained them up. I mean, we didn't have segregation in the country in those days. Everybody went to the same school, whether you're black, white, Chinese, Indian, whatever it was. You all went to the same school. You were all taught by Jesuit priests or teachers from the Belgium, from the country, the home country, we used to call it. Yeah. So they all had all the opportunities. It was all there. That's my understanding. What happened politically wise, I don't know. But it was just them standing next to the aircraft. And as you know, everybody likes to have the pictures taken next to the airplanes. And this is one of the aircraft that they worked on. And these aircraft were seconded from the Sabina and then converted into the photographic platform aircraft.
Sabina being the state-owned national carrier of Belgium, which eventually went bankrupt.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So these aircraft that you see there are the actual aircraft of the company that were hangared in Leopoldville. But they flew all over. So you would always have 2 aircraft that were airworthy certificateness. And then one was kept back, which was going through it's 50-hour, 100-hour, it's annual. And then the next aircraft, so they would rotate all the time.
Right, we would call that phase maintenance. So you always have part of the aircraft going through
always had an airplane up in the air, And because of the weather, and also there was a policy in the Congo, and I don't know, maybe Erica would know about this as well, that in the company, you weren't allowed to stay longer than 6 months in the Congo. That was the company policy. I don't know if it was a policy amongst the ruling party at the time or the government at the time, is that you would had to go back to Europe for 6 months. So you worked for 6 months, went back to Europe for 6 months, went back to the Congo, worked for 6 months, etc., etc., etc. And the reason was that because of the tropical diseases, they were worried that you stay too long, you might pick up malaria or one of the other tropical diseases. So some other photos that we'll get to later on, I'll explain to you what it's all about.
Well, that sounds about as scientific as you can have 50,
it's boring.
50 or less guests at a gathering because of COVID. But if you have 51, everyone will die from COVID. So
Anyway,
I can't remember leaving the Congo every year, but I do remember going to Switzerland. I think I went twice. Also, I remember going to Mozambique on holiday. I think we did that twice. The one time, actually, that was an interesting experience because we were in a little cottage, right on the beach in Mozambique, and my mom was preparing breakfast, and it was one of these paraffin stoves, and it exploded.
Oh gosh!
And and my mom was badly burnt, and she had to be flown to South Africa.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a company policy. I don't think it was the policy of the government at the time.
Probably, but now that you mention it, we did go away quite often. Yes.
Yeah. I remember we used to sit outside in certain places, which you'll see some pictures later on as well, where a helicopter would fly overhead and drop DDT all the time. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's they're controlling mosquitoes. Yeah.
That was
late
amazing for
afternoon,
controlling
just before the
mosquitoes.
storm.
It was very effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also weakened egg shells for birds. So
Yeah.
we wound up,
Yeah, it did.
because of Rachel
Yeah.
Carson's Silent Spring, we stopped using it. And the way they were using it was indiscriminate, but judicious use of it was quite. But anyway, that's another story. But so that raised a question when you mentioned your mom. So one thing I noticed when I started traveling to Africa was still prevalent, that it continued since the colonial era, is that people who lived in Africa, outside South Africa, and from the Congo downwards, if they needed serious medical care, they always went to South Africa for their medical care. Was that a phenomenon at the time for you guys as well? People were being evacuated, or did you get most care you needed right there in Leopoldville or Elizabethville?
No, we got care there, but if you really were sick, then we went to Belgium, because it was a government company. All that was taken care of by the government. So if you really got sick, we were shipped off to Belgium, to Brussels, and then we went to the National Health there at the time. So that was I'm getting tongue tied here. That was the policy in those days.
Well, I asked because I'm kind of picturing, maybe there's a big hospital in Stanleyville, and maybe
there was.
Yeah, but then maybe in Elizabethville there might be a hospital. Maybe there's a bunch of little clinics, and I'm just trying to picture this. I'm thinking if you need like a heart surgery or something like that, you'd have to go.
No. I think they would do like appendix if it was that bad. But I think above serious stuff, I think they would send you somewhere else. But we never went to South Africa. We went back to Belgium many times. And every 6 months you had to go. We had my dad, and I was tested as well, because I remember that one specific incident when we had to be tested for diseases and what have you. And then I got a shot for, it was something I can't remember, but they gave it underneath my foot, some vaccine. And I got terribly sick over it. So I landed up in a hospital in Belgium because of that.
So, Erica, what about with you guys? Serious things you were evacuated to South Africa, or?
Well, my mother was evacuated to South Africa when she was burnt when that stove exploded. And she was flown down by helicopter, and then we followed her quite soon after that. It was about a year before we came down to South Africa as refugees. Gotcha. So I must have been about 4. Yeah. Okay.
So Ron is asking a question. I'm going to try to do this. So I assume that this means mother. Murder is murder, mother, M-O-E. Yeah. Okay. So he's asking Nigel. I think if you're now, this is in Flemish, I guess. I can't tell, but he says Vlaams, Vals of Brussels, a Flemish Walloon. Okay, yeah, that I can read. Flemish Walloon or from Brussels. Where's your mother from, if you don't mind sharing? He was curious.
She's a Walloon.
A Walloon. Okay, there you go. Okay.
She's from Brussels.
Yeah, but she's a Walloon.
She's a Walloon.
Okay, cool. Well, there you go.
Same as my mother.
I just let you know, Ron, we're not ignoring you. Just having a hard time. I'm having a hard time figuring out what you're trying to ask. I think I got it. Okay, so let's go back to the photos real quick there. And the ones I'm going to put on the screen now are the next ones, which is one of those engineers with a massive engine there. And then below that, people gathered in a living room for conversation. What are these 2 photos? Tell us about those, Nigel.
These, again, I can't remember exactly where they were, but this is what would happen when you weren't flying. You would gather around and then discuss whatever events or the daily life in the Congo, because it was pretty laid back in many instances. Some days you couldn't fly. Some months you couldn't fly at all because it was just too hot or humid. So this was just a general type of get-together around there and consume an inordinate amount of beer, which I didn't. I drank an inordinate amount of Coke. And this is what they would do. And that was our daily life. That's what it was all about. Just sitting around, talking nonsense and what have you. Carefree.
I'm thinking that maybe Dodgy Joe and Yanni have it right. I mean, Call of Duty looks a lot more interesting than sitting around drinking.
Yeah.
So what's the engineer that's here? Is that an engine from one of the Dakotas?
Yeah, it's a Pratt & Whitney. I don't know exactly which one it is, but it's one of the engineers, one of the engines up to taken off the aircraft, probably doing some maintenance on it or whatever. I'm not too sure. But if you look at the guy, I mean, look at what he's got. I mean, they were reliable. They worked. My dad always praised them. Never had problems with them. They always were eager. They flew with us. it was all very much a mixed bag. No problem at all. No problem at all.
That's quite the impressive engine he's working on there. So let me slide down. I've changed the view because it was too small
Okay.
to full screen. So what I've done now is on the next page, I'm going to guess this might be your mom and maybe you sitting in a park bench.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Look at little Nigel. Look at Nigel. He's like the brew. He's showing off his nipples.
That's little me. Little me. Wow. Anyway, yes, again, what I wanted to show here, why I chose this photograph, is that if you look at the park, it's just a normal scene. There's nothing fancy about it. It was a well-kept park. There was strewn all over in Yopelville. You could walk around. It was just nice and comfortable. But if you notice that I'm not wearing anything, that's how you walked around in the Congo, because it was hot as hell. And the clothes, my mom at the time made all her own clothes. So she brought a sewing machine. I know that because she used to talk about it, how she used to enjoy making clothes. And of course, my dad being not only a photographer, he would take a whole lot of pictures. So like I said, we got thousands of pictures of that period. But I specifically took this one because of the park. You could go there and sit and do whatever you want to, I guess.
That's pretty cool.
Within
Now
limits.
the bench, the frame of the bench is concrete. It looks like the slats might be metal. I can't tell if they're metal or wood.
They were wood.
Oh, they are wood. Okay. Wasn't sure. I was wondering if maybe termites might be an issue.
No. The little red ants were an issue. They used to bite the crap out of you.
Yeah.
You had to be careful for those red ants. You would scratch in places where you didn't want to scratch.
Yeah, I know somebody got the genius idea to import these red ants that keep the forest floor clean from Germany into the Pacific Northwest. If you go out there in Washington State and you're walking around and you sit down, if you're not careful, you'll get bit pretty badly. These things, they bite and they leave marks, and they're huge and they're very painful. But the forest floors are quite clean because they're great scavengers. They keep it clean. Well, that's a lovely photo of the park there. You must have been, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years old at that stage?
Yeah, around there. It was early 53.
Okay.
53, 54, early. Probably just gotten there. I can't tell you much more than that. All I wanted to do was depict what the parks looked like at the time period, and the life of people, how they lived there and what they did for fun. And, we didn't go to cinemas.
Yeah.
We didn't go to pubs. What we did do is that, Belgium is famous for its little road cafe sides, the little restaurants where if you go to La Grande Place in Belgium, around the square, on the one end, you've got all these little restaurants with the chairs and what have you outside. And you would sit there and have your little, whatever it is you'd like to drink. And it was very much like that in the Congo as well. You would go on the boulevard and you'd have all these little restaurants on the side with their chairs, and you'd all go there and drink under an umbrella that had Smirnoff on it. What was the name that they used to use on those things? I can't remember, but anyway. So that was the life in the Congo.
Hendo is being a little cheeky here, and I'll practice my Afrikaans. I think what he's saying is that Nigel was a naked colonial. Nigel was a Kalgat colony.
Yes, probably, But I have no tattoos, so I don't know.
Well, my brothers, so they ran around naked, and my older brother, he was everywhere. My mom, she had us three children very close together, and my older brother was middle child. And he was, eventually, she had put a miniature cowbell around his neck so that she always knew who he was, because he was into everything. And the one time she had these guests who came for tea. And apparently my brother came running around the corner, as brown as he had dirt all over him, as naked as Dane was born, with a bell ringing around his neck. It's the Congo.
But I'll give you a typical scene, which is what I remember, because there are moments, there are nanoseconds of time when you lived in the Congo that are imprinted in your mind and you never forget them, because they were just pure joy. One of them is that I used to have little monkeys as pets. Uh-huh. Now, in them days, if you think of Spar, where we have a shopping, a franchise of shops called Spar, where you go and buy baked beans and God knows what it is you want. But they had something similar there. And what they used to do is used to pack all the baked beans and the cans of fruit or whatever on the floor. So you would have a stack of baked beans, stacked up in tins. And I used to go to shops quite often. And that's one thing you could do in the Congo. You would walk around there quite safely, no problem. So I had this little monkey on me, and he was such a naughty little bugger that I went into one of these shops one day, and he pulled one of these cans out, that I had to run away as a 5-year-old, because my monkey had done something terrible, Fortunately, I was not chased by a dog. So, and those were the scenes that happened there often. It's not that everything was perfect. It's just that you were just a normal person. However, you can't walk around here now doing that sort of thing, where there you could. And everybody just took it for granted. There was nothing, there was no murders, there was no kidnapping. Sorry, let me put that. There was murders, but it was not in the extent that we have now. There was no kidnapping and that sort of stuff. It was just pure relaxation, enjoying your life. And I'm sure, for me as a kid, I'm sure my parents had anxiety over certain things. I'm sure they had. But for us as kids, it was just a brilliant, brilliant way of life. So much so, when I landed up in Joburg and I got off the airplane, I looked at my mom and I said, "Alors, c'est pas du Congo, hein? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a ici? C'est un problème, hein?" I don't know if you can translate that, it wasn't the Congo for me. Hey? It wasn't the same.
No, I think we should share with the audience is that, of course, that we're talking about recollections of folks who were young children at the time. Your experience as a child. So as children, we seldom know what's going on with our parents or socio-political issues. Those really aren't things. You know what you experience. Like, me going and living in a housing complex that was entirely black, 400 families, just 3 white families. Just natural. That's just how things were. It's not, it's something you thought about a question. My best friend was black because everybody in the neighborhood was black. So, that's just how it was. So, Erica, these cafes, were they a common feature in Elizabethville as well? These little, Belgian coffee cafes you find on the side of the road?
Yes, they were. They were. And of course, I will always remember the band, that played in the bandstand.
Your microphone is getting hollow again. Did it move or something?
Yeah.
There we go.
To the bottom. Sorry. Yes, they were. I remember going for ice creams quite regularly and that type of thing, just to cool down, probably also for my mom. But obviously, my most memorable memories were the bands in the bandstand and families gathering in the streets, and it was very carefree. And even the school was interesting because I don't know about Nigel, I started school at about the age of 4.
Same here.
And sandpits, huge sandpits, but everything was big to me then. And it was a Flemish school, so with my mom being Flemish, it wasn't a problem at all. And that's where I met Tommy's daughter, was at the school.
And that was all, of course, the language instruction was French, of course.
Flemish and French.
Oh, in Flemish as well. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, because these days, normally when kids are living abroad in a remote location like that, if there's, although there it wasn't international schools because that was actually it was Belgian, say if you send your kids to a school abroad these days, typically the international schools are done in English, whatever country. And so, I'm just curious. Brett has just given a super chat. He's asking your thoughts on Patrice Lumumba. She was a small girl, probably never heard of Patrice Lumumba. Probably doesn't know much about him all that time. So we're reflecting on this time period, Brett. So you can ask that question at a later stage. But thank you for the super chat. So Nigel, were you taught in French?
I was taught in French. Yeah, we're never spoken to in Flemish, so I was purely French. And we had a nanny who was a caretaker for me personally, and she used to take me to the market. There's a picture of a market somewhere there, which we'll get to, and she would teach me Swahili. So I learned to speak Swahili.
Okay. Cool.
When I was, and unfortunately, I've forgotten it when I came to.
No, but Swahili's easy. It's I learned it. I was fluent in it in less than a year at university, and then I didn't speak it for over 20 years. Found myself in Arusha. I was sitting in a cafe, and people around me in this hotel there for a conference. And some people were speaking Swahili. I wasn't really paying much attention. Others were speaking English. The waiter came and asked me in English. He said, "Would you like something to drink?" And I didn't even think about it. It just came right out of my head. "Anina toka maji." Where'd that come from? I'll have water. It's that means I'll take water. But yeah, it just came out. So it's a fun language. But listen, you've done very well in life, despite the handicap of having been educated in French. I mean, you've overcome that disadvantage. No
I can thank my father for that, because when I married my wife, she was Afrikaans, and I was at that then I could speak English. So when I met her, she could hardly speak English, and I couldn't speak Afrikaans. So when we first dated, I would say kiss kiss, and she looked at me and says, "Yo, moer," and I thought, oh, that says yes. I would give her a kiss, Anyway.
Okay, that's
the same. That's the same with French. I would come here because I didn't speak English at that time,
yes.
or very, very broken English, and it was very difficult for me. And of course, one of the misconceptions is that if you came from the Congo, everybody thought you could speak Vlaams, which is not the case at all.
Right, exactly. That was why I asked those questions. So interesting. So there is a question in the chat here about if either of you spoke Lingala.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I wouldn't expect that we'd get that from Erica because it's not the right region. But for you, it might be something you might have heard. But yeah, so let's get back to the photos. Let's take a look at those. Now, this one here, this looks to be like a pram from the 12th century. It's a little outdated here. And I'm going to guess that's you with your mom.
It is with my mom, but you can brush her aside and me for a while. What I want you to do is have a look at the background and look at that building.
Well, that's what I was going to talk about. This looks like a major metropolitan city somewhere in Europe.
Absolutely. So, it was very modern. There was high-rise, what we call high-rise buildings, but it's a block of flats. So if you go and look at pictures of the Congo now, especially Leopold, which is now Kinshasa, you will see a lot of these still exist and people live there. So it was very modern, very much metropolitan. So the misconception that the Congo was wild and it was bush all the time is not true. However, having said that, there was nothing more enjoyable than getting into a 4x4 and then 20 minutes you're out in the jungle or in the country hunting, doing crocodile hunting in a cutout canoe or, looking at wild animals, etc., etc. So that was the contrast between a city and going out to what we call here the bushveld, into the veld.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's important to dispel those myths. There's, that's part of the problem. And so let me just be very clear about this. It's interesting because what you find is that I've seen this many times. I've seen people when they come from Africa or they come from Asia or something, like they talk to Americans and especially American kids and like, oh, they're just racist. What? Well, they think everyone has monkeys and elephants in their yard and everything. But immigrants whose kids come from Africa and grow up in the West and are disconnected from nature in Africa, who happen to be black, ask the same innocent questions as young white kids. Do you have elephants in your yard? Do you have, because they don't know any better. It has nothing to do with that. That's what always irritated me about this sort of thing is that people have these conceptions and misconceptions about locations, and you guys are helping dispel some of those. Well, here, let's talk to the next one here. This looks like an awesome-looking folded wing biplane with a torpedo on it, and there's a gentleman at the top.
Okay, that's my dad.
Okay.
The one on the top is my dad.
Okay.
So this is a beach scene. And as you can see, we have a little transistor radio, and he's trying to fish. And my dad was not a fisherman, but he was sort of cornered into trying to catch fish, which we tried. But that's my dad, just to give you an idea of what it looked like. The scenery at that point. It could be anywhere in South Africa. In actual fact, it could be I don't know, whatever. But the plane below, the biplane, that's a swordfish. That's a swordfish that my dad served in. And one of the interesting facts about my father is that he was on a ship that, one they call a ship, I'm referring to the airplane. He served on the HMS Ark Royal, and he was on one of these aircraft that was engaged, that engaged the Bismarck.
Ah, okay. Yep.
He was in the second wave, and that's why I put it in there. So that's part of the history of my family.
Now, interesting thing about this photo that I must note here is that I do see that the engine's running because the propellers are spinning, yet I don't see any pilots in the aircraft.
You have a good point there, actually. I've never noticed that.
I see a pilot on the right side of the image walking like, hey, my plane's taking off without me.
You have a good point there. I've never noticed that.
That's hilarious. Oh, yeah.
Goodness.
Wow, but the Bismarck,
Okay.
quite a piece of history there.
Mm.
Okay, we're gonna go down and look at another photo here. I'm gonna guess that's your mom with, I don't know if that's booze or cologne. It looks like it might be
That's
cologne.
that's booze.
Okay, it's booze. That's a lot of booze.
So that's my mom in one of her black hair periods. Now, if you look at the top of the booze counter or the bar,
Yes.
you notice is that one of the things that a lot of the Congo people did is that we would burn candles on
Yeah, I
bottles.
see that. That's like 8 pounds
Okay.
of candle wax on top of that
Yeah.
bottle.
And we had a collection of those. And the one day our keeper came along and cleaned all the bottles. And it threw my mom in a complete spin. She said, "Do you know how long it took me to have this done?" And blah, and she didn't know. And he said, "Well, I was just trying to clean up,
Yeah,
So it was
exactly.
quite funny. But I mean, again, I just want, folks to take a notice. They used to, unfortunately, do drink a lot. But they have little mixes, they would mix, I don't know, I'm not a drinker, so I wouldn't know. Maybe a bit of brandy with some hot pepper in it or something. I have no idea. And of course, you can see they are international people because they're smoking Peter Stuyvesant.
I was about to say, if you take a look at the table, you'll also notice a different area. There are smokes on the bar as well. Yep.
Yeah. And but just the whole scenario of the Congo, it's not a bush cabin or anything.
Yep.
Actually, in fact, it's quite luxurious. We never owned a home in the Congo. We never owned houses per se.
Right.
It's because with the government had houses all over the place. So we wouldn't even have to pay rent. Mm-hmm. All the furniture was ours, the folks.
Sure.
And we would just furnish the house. So that just gives you an idea. And the dress my mom's wearing, she made it herself. Mm-hmm. So that just gives you an idea of the lifestyle of that period.
Well, on this next photograph, I've slid down to, this is a city scene. It looks like quite a wide boulevard there with a big centerpiece with, it looks like a little monument or park there, bushes, and two roadside vendors selling. Obviously, one travels by bicycle. He's got it there. It looks like they're selling purses. I think that's what this is, handbags.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And the cars are smart. They look new and in good condition for a place that rains all the time. You'd expect them to be rusty.
Yeah. A typical scene of the Congo, you would find that everywhere. I don't think much has changed. They're still vending on the side of the street. Mm-hmm. But and I remember because we had those, we had some of these bags, and when we immigrated to South Africa, we had a few of them, and they lasted for years. They were really well handmade, but they were beautifully made and very decorative. If you go up back to the bar, on the top of my mom's head, there's a painting there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a painting done by an African, what they call stick figures.
Uh-huh.
That was all done by the Africans at that time and in that period. You would get a lot of that. Okay. So yeah,
interesting. Let me slide down to the next one here. Oh my goodness, there is a for hang on a second. I got to put us all on the screen so we can just make people can see our faces. Yeah. For those of you under the age of 1,000. This is a device that today is replaced by something called an MP3 player. You can listen on your mobile. It weighs a couple of ounces. But you're going to see here, it looks like it's Nigel's mom dealing with something the size of an armored personnel carrier in order to generate music so we can hear it. This is like a massive hi-fi. And I think that the blue thing might have been a LP player, a record player on top inside a case. Am I correct?
No, unfortunately you're not. It's a reel-to-reel player.
Oh, okay. Well, close enough. Okay, but it's also for playing sound. Yeah. Okay.
What's interesting, the reason why I'm showing it is because my dad was very much as a hobby into electronics. So he built that whole amplifier on the radio.
Wow.
So that was the hi-fi of those days. Ronaldo Gous with his Technics turntable. You see.
Yeah.
It's not that ancient. However, the top part there where you see the brown part with those round knobs on it, that was an amplifier that my dad had built. It was all valves in those days. There weren't transistors. That's a tape recorder. I still have those reels.
Wow.
I still have those reels with music on it, and I have reels with his voice on it still. Do you think I can find a reel-to-reel tape recorder?
They're hard to find. Have you ever been able to transfer that to digital in any way?
No, I want to. That's the whole point.
Because the tape will degrade over time. You'll lose it.
Yeah. We've got, I've been very careful to look after those. All the slides that I've had from the Congo, they've all been digitized.
Okay, good.
They're being put away. We have tons and tons of 8mm, Super 8 and Standard 8 film, which we're busy now putting it onto digital format. So yes, and so there's a whole lot of stuff in there as well, which is very interesting. But this is just an idea. Again, we were, let's be honest, middle upper class. We were probably considered wealthy because of the scenario and how we lived. Okay, but that is a typical house that you would find amongst the Europeans in the Congo at that time.
Now, folks, I've got to let the cat out of the bag here. Nigel's not going to tell you this, but you see that there were some cables running to it. They're really just stuck out the window. There was no power. And actually, Nigel's inside that box. He's inside that box as a small child pedaling to generate the electricity so his parents could listen to music. It's what we call child slave labor. So I don't know. Nigel, it's a painful memory for Nigel, so he didn't want to share that. But
we'll skip that part.
But seriously, obviously you had electricity. How was your electricity supply? Was it reliable back then? Do you remember?
We did have blackouts, from what I can remember, but it wasn't as frequent as we get it now. I think it was more to do with...
Every hour is pretty frequent, so yeah.
I think it was more to do when we had storms, because we used to get pretty heavy storms at some stage, and it would smack the lines and cause probably havoc and what have you. So yeah, I remember that.
Now, Erica, your father was in accounting, your mother was a nurse. So were you guys kind of hoi polloi, ritzy like Nigel's family was, or were you just kind of middle class and on the white trash side that my family was?
No, middle class. High middle class.
Okay, all right. So did you guys have any of those highfalutin? I mean, by the way, that's pretty impressive. Nigel's dad built that thing. That's pretty cool. But I mean, that's back when we did stuff like that, right? I used to build computers. Now I just go online and go, okay, put this in and put this in and put this in it. I can't be bothered with it. People can't be bothered anymore. So what was it like? Did you guys have anything? Was your family into photography or hi-fis or cars or anything like that? Because, I mean, Nigel, his dad's in aviation. He builds stereos. He's got reel-to-reels. They're all big. They're techs. They're nerds before nerds were cool. What about your family, Erica?
Well, my father had a Mercedes. He had a black Mercedes. And he drove that Mercedes from the Congo to South Africa, after we had to leave as refugees. And my mom and my two brothers and I, we came down by train, and my dad followed afterwards. We didn't think he'd get out alive, but he did, in the Mercedes.
Wow.
And at that particular time, there was only one other Mercedes in South Africa, a black Mercedes, exactly the same as my dad. It was a state president. So you can imagine, we had fun.
I'll bet.
Because we were in Pretoria.
Can I get you to move your mic again? Sorry, it's got that hollow sound again.
Okay, sorry.
There you go. That's so much better.
Yeah.
So if I heard correctly,
sorry.
Your dad drove that Mercedes. He got out of Katanga and got to South Africa in that Mercedes, and it was the only. There's only one other Mercedes like that in all of South Africa at the time.
Yes, the state president. So we had a lot of fun with that.
People probably thought the president was driving by every time they saw your dad.
That's right, because we were in Pretoria.
Well, yeah, especially in Pretoria.
Yeah.
Did the police snap to attention and salute?
We had no problems. Yes, we did get salutes. So I would always crack up laughing.
That's pretty funny. Yikes. So Elizabeth in chat says, makes me want to scratch in my parents' photos, which I'm banned from because of previous theft accusations. Memories. Well, Elizabeth, you shouldn't be stealing photographs from your parents. Now that my mother has passed, I have a garage full of photographs from her lifetime, which I'm about to sort through this week. So, Nigel, let's get back to the photographs here. This is an amazing photograph of your mom in a beautiful looking park. I assume that's in Leopoldville.
Yeah, that we didn't have robots in those days, or traffic lights as you call them. We had roundabouts or traffic circles, and Leopoldville was full of them, and that's how it looked at that time. They would take care of it, and you would drive around, and that's mom. Like you said, my mom standing in the middle there. So that just gives you an idea of the roadworks and the scenery and the vegetation of that country.
Now,
You see that palm tree there, that tree I was referring to earlier on behind her? That's the one. Yeah, that's the one.
So, I mean, it's difficult to tell from the photos because, I mean, she's not around anyone else tall, but I get the impression your mother must be tall. Is that the case, or just?
No, she was a midget. She was 5.1.
Wow, that's definitely an illusion then. That's why I was asking. Yeah. Okay.
No, she's very short.
So now the next photo here we see, it looks like fishing made from reeds, fishing baskets. Is that what those are?
Yep, that's exactly what it is in the Congo River. The Africans would catch fish in that manner. Excuse me. In some parts of the river where it really flows fast, they would put them out in the water. I have, there's 2 photos and you'll see some kids there and you can see how rapid it gets in some areas. They would put those nets out and catch the fish in that manner, and they still do it today.
Yeah, yeah, and they work. They're very effective.
And they work.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
the kids were.
Go ahead.
The kids were incredible in the water. They could swim. They would go underneath. They would come up. No fear of that water. And look at the speed. You can see the speed of that water. It's not slow.
Well,
and the kids used to go in there.
Well, I don't have that picture up. I'm going to show that in just a moment. I just have the baskets right now.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So people can't see that. They're probably like, what's he talking about? But Leo Vinyansa von Rensburg says, I still have a valve radio and would love to get it working, but can't find anyone to fix it. Yeah, that's a tough thing. Okay, here you go. Here's the water from the Congo and his kids fishing. Look at that. Wow. Wow, folks. There's a bunch. I mean, it's a tiny little kid. Looks like he's about 2 or 3 years old. Yeah. Crazy stuff. And let me move on to the next one here. And this, you look like you got lederhosen on there next to, it looks like a Peugeot or a Citroen, I think it is.
Yeah, it's a 2CV.
Okay. And is that...
Deux chevaux.
Okay. Is that with your dad?
Yeah. So earlier on, I said that every 6 months you had to leave the Congo and do whatever you wanted to do. It's like a furlong, 6 months furlong. So what we used to do is we used to hire a car, which was a Deux chevaux, and we would tour the whole of Europe.
Oh, cool.
In the Deux chevaux. And this is one of the second last times we went over, did a tour. This was Italy.
Okay.
As you can see by the grab we were wearing. So that is basically, so you can see I've grown up a little bit since that little baby portion. And we would travel around in that little Deux chevaux all over Italy. We'd go to some fantastic places. As you can see, if you scroll down a little bit further down, you'll see we're at the Colosseum and we're at the...
there you go.
In a couple of places there, you'll see where we are.
You're looking distinctly blonde.
I was blonde. I was blonde until about 15. 15.
What is that all about? I mean, I had blonde hair and blue eyes until puberty, and then my hair got brown, and then when I got my 30s, it started turning not black, but almost. What's that all about? I mean, that's interesting. I guess the hair just gets exposed and I don't know, turns. But yeah, you're looking distinctly blonde there. Looks like it's either. No, it's the same day. I mean, I don't.
It's
imagine, yeah, but
this is in Italy. Yeah,
I don't imagine you're wearing the same shirt for days on end. So it looks like it's the same day. You have the same shirt on.
Yeah, same day. Yeah. Okay. So the one is I think it's called the Colosseum.
Yes.
In Rome. We've been there a few times. To be frank, as a little child, you go, then you think, this is just a piece of scrap heap. It's just, c'est cassé, ça marche pas, qu'est-ce qu'il y a avec ça? C'est un problème. But anyway, and I never took a lot of interest about it, but now that the memories are coming back, and actually very fond memories of spending time with my mom and dad and looking at these places and thinking, we did have a privileged life at that point in time.
Yeah, no, it's quite lovely. I mean, you got to do these things. I as a child, never got to travel or anything like this. It's quite interesting. You did. I traveled, but we were running from bill collectors from state to state to avoid bill collectors. So it's not quite the same sort of thing. So, when you're slipping out in the middle of the night and you hear sirens as you cross the state line, then you're safe. But yeah, no. So here's a picture of you. It looks like you got roller skates there, man. Those are from the 12. Those are also from the 1200s. Those roller skates.
Yeah, they are. Because we used to spend. My grandparents lived in Brussels, and what we used to like to go do when we were there on furlong is to go to Ostend. Yes. And Ostend has a piers, and it's got these jetties going out.
On a pier right there.
On a pier there, yeah. And I used to love roller skating. And that was just me at, I don't know, 7, 8, I guess.
Yeah.
Roller skating up and down. And they used to have these little 3-wheelers that you could sit on and pedal. And one of the things I really used to enjoy doing, because every time I go back, the last time I went back was quite a few years ago, was they used to have these little side road, what do we call them? Anyway, don't want to waste time.
Yeah.
But you buy little shrimps that have been fried with fritos, and you would have that either with mustard or with mayo. And used to buy those, and used to buy and eat them on the pier. They're fantastic because they were fresh.
Exactly.
Because Ostend is a fishing village. It's basically a fishing area where all the fishing boats would come in and unload their catch. And that's what I used to do in my holidays and fall off bicycles and break hands.
Well, that's not so good. But so Bram Janssen van Rensburg asked if you knew Mike Beachyhead. I don't know what that is. Mike Beachyhead.
No. Name's not familiar.
And then Elizabeth is offering some kind advice for Leuven Janssen van Rensburg. Says, try Mars Tube Audio in Parle if you're near Cape Town. Okay, to fix that tube radio. So that'd be cool. Okay. Mars Tube Audio.
Tube radio.
Cool. And then Lynn's saying something about Erica's hair is the same, still the same. So,
are the folks enjoying this?
Well, the audience has been consistent. I mean,
good.
We've had between 75 and 85 people the entire ride so far. So, folks, you're listening to Chris Wide Africa on the Adobe Africa channel here on YouTube on the 4th of January, 2021 for my inaugural 2021 interview program. This is the first time I interview anybody this year. And my guests today are Nigel Soden and Erica Unwin, who've joined us to talk about their experiences growing up in the Belgian Congo. That's right. No, we're not glorifying colonialism. We're not calling for a heyday. We don't harken back and wish for old days or days of yore. No, this was an opportunity for me to showcase Nigel's 14th century technology, things he experienced growing up, like these roller skates and his dad's massive hi-fi and these aircraft from another era. But no, it's a chance just to talk and reflect about what it was like growing up in a different era, in a different time, in a very different place. And that's kind of what we're talking about. So thanks for tuning in. We're going to go for a little bit longer here, but we just looked at a lovely photograph of Nigel on a pier with rollerblades. Now, before I bring the next photo up, which is, this one's pretty stunning. So before we do that, Nigel, I just want to ask Erica.
Warn.
Yeah, I want to ask Erica. So when you think back to Elizabethville, what is the thing that you miss the most from that time? I mean, you were a little kid, so we miss different things when we're younger. But is there anything that stands out in your mind that you really miss? I mean, would you have liked that time to continue and have grown up in the Congo and not moved on, or was there something special about it?
I missed our pets. We had to leave them behind when we came through as refugees. My dog and cats, and yes, I also had a pet monkey, and I had a tortoise. I just missed the wildness of it, because when we came to South Africa, we went to first of all we went to Pretoria, where my grandparents were, and then from there we went to Johannesburg. And I mean, South African culture hit me like a bomb. I couldn't speak any of the languages. Picked up Afrikaans first, but yeah, I missed the lifestyle, the freedom, and I missed my friends. I missed Trombi so much. He was a lovely man, he really was, and yeah, it was a different lifestyle.
Well, that's kind of what I figured. I expected that's kind of what you'd say. A lot of really nice things coming in the chat right now, folks. People enjoying this. Marauders says, thanks to Nigel and Erica. It's very interesting. Thank you. I'm a sucker for reminiscing. Now, this one I can't endorse, but Ron, Von Ryman, and a couple other people are going on about the wonderful Citroens. No, I'm sorry. I can't. That one I can't endorse. Citroen, no. Absolute garbage automobile. Now I'm going to get hate mail.
No.
So that Citroen Duck, what a sad excuse for a car. What a sad excuse for a car. Going to get hate mail now. I'm sure it's coming. Going to be coming very shortly. But yeah, so lots of folks are saying really nice things. Keith was asking, can you ask Nigel if the tapes are 3 1/4 or 7.5 inches per second? I think he's talking about the 8mm. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
He would be calling up what they call standard 8. So the sprocket holes are different to super 8.
Exactly.
They're 1/4 inch, but I don't know what speed they were at. I think they're 1/4 inch.
Clem Molinaric says, great stream, guys. Really interesting. Well, that's cool. So now we're going to embarrass Nigel slightly.
Before you go,
go ahead.
Before you go, I'd like to correct a misconception about Un citron.
Oh, dear God. Okay.
When
Ladies and
you-
gentlemen,
when
we're
you-
having trouble with Nigel's connection. If he drops off, don't pay any attention to that.
When you drive in Europe in those days, or
Yes.
specifically Italy or even Belgium, and you have these little cobblestone roads, you do not feel a thing when you drive in a deux chevaux. It's as smooth as a baby's whatever.
Bum.
No, yeah. And the only car that could duplicate that kind of ride was the Citroen again, which was, what did they call it? The D9, I think they called it in those days. You know, that long one where you pop a tire and you can still drive on 3 tires, you know, on three wheels. This little deux chevaux was exactly the same. The only problem with this car is that it was a 3-cylinder, if I can remember. It was a 900cc. It was 2-stroke, so it smoked like hell sometimes. And when you hit a hill, it would puke all over the road because it just looked at it and thought, I'm not going to make this at all. You know. So I'll grant you that piece. But for the rest, nah. You may continue.
Well, thank you so much for that. That brief interlude, this advertisement for piss poor French
Citroën.
automobile production. Citroën, yeah, that's right. Peugeot and Citroën. Even the very names are difficult to stomach. No, just kidding. Just give them the French a hard time, folks. Just give them a hard time. The Duck is actually beloved. The Duck is a beloved vehicle. People absolutely love it. They cherish it. I don't know why, but they really do. So now we're going to embarrass Nigel with, this is a photograph from Life magazine and Vogue. And I think it was in Gentleman's Quarterly back in the day. So we're going to show you this photograph here. You guys ready for this? Check it out. Look at James Bond right there. Look at that pose. Striking a pose with that lovely lime green sort of blazer and a turtleneck. Wow, look at that. Where's this at, Nigel?
Okay, this is 1972, 72, 73, just before I met my wife. I was approached by some agent and asked if I would do some modeling. And I said, yeah, sure.
Wait a second. Hang on a second, Nigel. Why did you pause like that? You made us think like I was approached to do some movies, like you were going to do in porn or something.
Let's move on.
We've discovered something here, folks. This was a family program. Send your children home now. Anyway, go ahead, Nigel.
But the reason why I put that photograph is to show you that nothing has changed today. You know, you look at this and you say, well, you can see it's a vintage photograph.
Yes.
Right? But if you look at the jacket, that green, the reason why I put it there is because the next photographs will explain it, is that green jacket was given to me after we had done that whole session. But there was one proviso that I had long hair in those days. And for the folks who are over 40, 50, you remember there was a boy by the name of David Cassidy in that time.
Yep.
And he had this long hair. Well, I had long hair like that, and I had it the same style as this. But I was asked to cut it short for this photo session. So I said, okay, fine. And if I did that, they would give me that jacket, which I did. I got it. When I met my wife on a blind date, I was wearing that jacket. And her first thought was, not that he's a good-looking bugger or that he's handsome. She went, that jacket. My God, I'm not going to go out with that man. So that's the story of that picture. Not the modeling part, nothing.
Okay. So there's another photograph where what's going on. The next one here looks like somebody's playing guitar. Where's this at?
This is up in Joburg. These are a staff member of my dad. My dad worked for a company in Boksburg, and I was invited to go and play guitar there. So this is the era. What I'm just trying to show is the continuity of things that we did in the Congo with the music, etc., etc. How although we live in a different era, but things don't really change. We do the same thing: electronics, flying, photography. It's just the technology is different, but the hobbies are the same. Nothing's changed much.
The tools change, but the human interaction remains consistent, and that gets lost on people. You know, it may be PlayStation and PCs and Xboxes today, but it was Atari and Pong 40 years ago. And before that, it was different technology, that sort of thing. Now, I will say this, that you seem to have adapted well from the Belgian Congo, and you've pretty much become a Burki there because, I mean, you seem to be incapable of wearing shoes. You're barefoot in this photograph.
I never wore shoes. I never wore shoes in the Congo.
Just like an Afrikaner. Wow.
When I was sent to a private school, the public school in England, up in Yorkshire, bought me a uniform, and they presented me with these two black objects, and I thought, what the hell must I do with this? And they said, you will wear them. You are not in the Congo anymore. I couldn't wear them. I couldn't wear these shoes. It was just terrible. So I would wear them, go and have breakfast, and when I went to class, I would take them off and walk without holding in my hand, And then I would put them under my desk. And in those days, you wrote with a quill. You know the quill with a little pen on it? And you would dip your quill in the ink in your little angled desk made out of wood, and you would write there. And unfortunately, I had a broken arm at that time, so I had to write left-handed. But I was fortunate because I was ambidextrous. The problem was, as I wrote, everything got smudged.
Yes, because...
So I'd look at this and I thought, what the hell?
As a left-handed person, I'm quite well acquainted with the bigotry against left-handed people, the way that writing things are designed. But I'm going to have to say this, Nigel. Listen, broken hand, broken arm. I think that you're probably a disaster to hang around with. You're probably an unsafe person to hang out with. So if Giselle decides to go skydiving again, I'll suggest she take you. I'm not going.
You think I'm bad? You must see my youngest son falling off a motorbike. He's got pins all over him. He fell down a castle and broke his arm. I don't know how many times. So he's taken after me, but he's got more. Anyway, let's continue.
Yeah, so this next photograph here, let's see, before we get to that, Fawn says Oxford pants. Good one there. And Hendel says that Nigel sounds like a French car salesman. I thought so too, but just anyway. But, and then here's another photograph. This is a lovely lady.
I want to know what his name is, please. I shall sell him a good second-hand car.
That doesn't sound like a French car salesman. It sounds more like
Hello. Attends, tell me the name of this Frenchman, this man.
That's better.
I will put my dog onto him.
All right, so here's a photograph. Looks like it's in a pub or a restaurant in a booth and with a red shirt on. And is that your wife or?
That's my wife, 1972.
Wow. And she's smiling despite the green jacket. That's impressive.
Well, she had destroyed it by then. I was banned from wearing it. Yeah. We have a saying. We all know this. When you meet a woman, it's just unusual. Although you can't see in this photograph, because if you look at my wife and you look at my mom, they're very similar, and you always seem to marry somebody that's very similar to your mother. And I know that sounds strange, but. So I've put it in there because I couldn't find one of my mom. But this was in Belgium on honeymoon in 1976. We got married, and then 2 years later I took her on honeymoon. So this is one in those little pubs in Brussels where you would go at the back of La Grande Place. They got all these restaurants where the locals go, and we'd go and have escargots and what do you mean ugh? Escargots, not ugh.
No,
so, and I took it. We went all over the place.
Exact. Ugh.
Ugh. Yeah, how is it that he can say ugh, but he can't say Ronaldo Goos?
I do say Ronaldo.
Oh, there you got it. You see,
but okay. I don't often keep spare phlegm in the back of my throat just to pronounce his name.
Anyway, so that's my wife in 1972. Unfortunately, she's not well at the moment.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, just that's how it is. But wonderful lady. We've been married for 45 years now.
Wow. So see, the green jacket didn't do any harm. It didn't do any harm. Yeah. So let me see. Hang on a second. I just lost where I was at there. So this is the next photograph. This is, it looks like a sort of white dress. And what's this one?
This is taken in Greece.
Okay.
But if you look at her style and you look at my mom in the previous pictures, you almost see the same clothes.
Yeah, exactly.
Some reminiscence. So nothing changes much because fashion just repeat themselves after so many years.
Yeah, things come back.
I put that in there because it's as a means of continuity, how things continue, but in a different time, in a different space of time. There's a nice story behind that, but I think we're running out of time, so I'll skip that one.
Well, let's start with the last one here, the last photograph here that we have. This is an awesome-looking plane, and I can't tell where this is at. Could be anywhere in the High Veld or somewhere in Southern Africa, but it's pretty cool-looking. The one behind it's even more impressive. Looks like it might, I don't know, it might be a Lear. I don't know what this one in the front is, but tell us about this picture.
This one in the front is a Piper Tri-Pacer.
Okay, Piper. Okay.
Yeah, 135 horsepower. That's my wife standing under the wing there.
Okay.
Again, this continuity. My dad came out of the Navy. I went into the Navy. My dad was in aviation. I got involved in aviation. After aviation, I got involved in hi-fis, top-end hi-fis. So there's that continuity within the family. The interesting thing about this particular airplane is that it came out the factory floor on the same day that I was born.
No way.
Exactly the same day when I was born.
Wow. So
and I got my license on that airplane.
Okay, but you got on that plane. You didn't own this plane though.
No, we owned it.
Oh, you did own it. Wow, that's incredible. That's
yeah.
incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
Is it in the dustbin of history now, or is it still around?
Oh no, I don't know actually. I haven't checked. I haven't checked if it still exists. It probably does somewhere. Mm-hmm. But I put it in there just to show continuity and how extraordinary it is that it actually came out the factory on the same day that I was born.
And what airfield is this? Did you say?
This is Benoni Brakpan Airfield,
okay,
1975, 76. Yeah, and the airplane behind it is a Piper Seneca.
Okay, Seneca. That's why I looked familiar. Okay.
Yeah.
No, Pipers are made right here in Pennsylvania. Then they eventually the company was relocated to Florida. But there's a Piper museum here in Pennsylvania. I've been there. It's pretty cool. It sits in an airfield up in the center of Pennsylvania, just west of Williamsport, about half an hour, 40 minutes from there. Quite awesome. They've got a good collection of stuff, an amazing collection. The building sucks. It's an old, the operations building with the hangars and the maintenance bays in the back, and they turned into a museum. Somebody needs to come up with like $3 or $4 million to build a proper, modern building, because the things they have inside it warrant a proper museum. Piper is amazing. Piper Cub. Oh man, that is a classic aircraft for firefighting, for reconnaissance, for all sorts of things. Piper's amazing. So Erica, when you guys moved, from you fled as refugees.
We fled.
Yeah. When you fled as refugees from the Congo, from Katanga to South Africa, and you had to leave all your pets behind. Sounds like you had a zoo there, a tortoise and a monkey and all kinds of other things. When you left all that behind, did you at the time, and this is a question for for refugees, and I know a number of people in my lifetime, particularly from Europe, who were refugees from the Second World War and such, but also people from the Middle East who've been refugees. Did you think or expect that you'd be going back? I mean, in Europe, a lot of people thought, well, once the war's over and everything's settled, we'll just go home. That's what people do after war. You leave for a while, then you come back. But the modern situation with refugees is that they never go home. You can't go home. It's not safe. So as a little kid at the time, did you think, well, we'll be coming back? Or did at some point you realize that's it, I'm never going back to the Katanga?
No, we knew we weren't going to go back because between the time we left, my mom and my two brothers and I, and with my dad finally arrived, things exploded. And I remember my parents and my grandparents listening to the radio every day. And my mother was crying at times as well. And I didn't think I'd see my dad alive. I'll never forget the day when I did see him driving up the road, in the black Mercedes. It was the most amazing day of my life. But then there was talk that we would go back to Switzerland. And but my dad was offered a job. His first job was with Total, and then from there he went to CNA. He was in charge of South Africa, all the books and things like that. And then after that we went to Dundee. But we knew we would never go back.
Yeah, no, that's got to be tough. I mean, because that's what you know. You're just a little kid. That's your whole world. That For me, I was never a refugee, but certainly moved a lot, and so I was constantly accustomed to picking up and moving every few months or to somewhere else. Being new, being skinny, being the new person on the outside all the time, was always on the outside. So that's all part of it too. I mean, you're on the outside. You don't speak the languages that these people around you speak, and you've got to adjust and figure things out. For a kid. Kids are adaptable. We learn quickly. We learn languages, but the constant changing or the big change like that's got to be difficult. So, but you had a pet monkey. I didn't know that. That's fascinating to hear about. So,
also the natural. No, I think it was common.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. I mean, it was pretty common then. Yep.
Chris.
Yeah.
If I can just share one little story, an incident happened in the Congo, which is quite hilarious. We used to drive around in Jaguars. in those days. And then my dad decided, you know what, let's get an American car. So they bought a Studebaker, really 66 Studebaker. No, 1958 Studebaker. And it was imported. And he always had cameras and 35 mil canisters with him all over the place, and got in the car and we drove. And then one day he got in the car and he heard this rattling. And he tried to find the damn rattle and he couldn't find it. And this went on for about 3 months. And eventually he just got fed up. He took the car back to the agents and he said, look, there's a rattle in this car and it's just driving me dilly. So anyway, they drove around it and they heard the rattle. They said, fine, okay. And none of them could find what the rattle was. Eventually they said, okay, fine, we'll import another one for you, which they did. And you got that one and it was perfect. About 6 months later, after he got his second one, the dealer phoned him and said, Mr. Soden, are you short of a 35 mil film canister? We found the source of your rattle.
And of course, the canisters were tin; they were metal; they weren't plastic.
Yeah,
and of course, later when I grew up, I mean, those were all plastic containers. But back in those days, it were all metal or tin. It's crazy. Listen, folks, come on, smash the like button. 81 people watching the program right now. We got 84 likes. Although I suspect most people that are here probably already liked it. But if you haven't, please smash the like button. There you go. There's one more before we close out this stream. Wow. That is a funny story. Thanks for sharing that. Well, guys, this is it's been fascinating, I think, for the audience. I've enjoyed it as well. Thanks, Nigel, for digging up those photographs. It just reminds me of the task I have waiting for me with my mother's photographs. There's so much to do, digitizing those and getting ready for my family members so they can see them. That's going to be a lot of work. Ron says Studebaker Jags. Interesting. Yeah. No, that is interesting to see that a Studebaker was in the Congo. That's pretty fascinating to see that actually happened. But yeah, when you think of Africa, you don't think of American-made cars. You just don't think of them. You don't think of them at all. You definitely think of European cars back in the day, and for the last 20 or 30 years, Japanese cars. That's what you expect. Toyotas all over the place, things like that. Maybe some BMWs, some Audis in South Africa, Mercedes occasionally. But yeah. So
there were a lot of Jeeps there, a lot of Jeeps and Chevy trucks. Yeah,
okay.
And when there was a crowd that used to catch animals. I don't know if you remember the film called Hatari.
Yeah, that's a John Wayne movie. It's his only movie. Yeah.
Those vehicles. I had a friend who was involved in that.
That was filmed in Arusha in Tanzania. Yep. Yeah, Hatari. And it was Tanganyika then, because I don't think it had become independent yet. I'm trying to remember the year. I think it was 58 or 59. Maybe it was 60. Yeah. So,
and every time I watched it, I cried my eyes out.
Why'd you cry?
You miss it. You miss.
Okay, yeah, okay, I got you. Okay, yeah, no, I actually enjoyed it. That was a pretty good film by John Wayne. I mean, it doesn't get a lot of credit for, but I mean, it's pretty good. Hatari, yeah, no, that was a good movie. So, yeah, guys, any last thoughts, Erica, on the Congo, Belgian Congo growing up? Anything you want to share with anybody? Because what we're doing right here, honestly, folks, this is recording history right here. I mean, it's like I always tell people, now this doesn't apply to you guys, so this is not, but I'm just saying, a lot of people, because I'm a genealogist, are like, yeah, I wish I talked to my parents and my grandparents when I was younger to hear stories about, growing up and where they're at. And that's what I always tell people who are into genealogy. If you have parents, you have grandparents, you have people that did something interesting, or even if you don't think it's interesting, and you're interested in genealogy or family history, go talk to them, record an audio interview with them, save those digits so you have their voice and hear their stories, and understand that we're all storytellers, and probably a little piece of all our stories are just nonsense, but most of them are true. But capture those things, because if you don't, you'll regret it later on. And if you have kids and grandkids, you'll regret not saving those things for them. So I think what we've done here a little bit today is capture for posterity a little bit of both of your experiences growing up in different parts of the Belgian Congo in a very different time and a very different era. So any last thoughts, Erica? And then I'll go to Nigel.
I don't regret spending those years in the Congo in the beginning. I learned so much. Chombe taught me so much as well. Human needs family. I learned about their culture. I was one of the family and could interpret the jungle drums and all that. And I think it's made me into a different person. My story isn't the same as everybody, as most people, and I don't regret it. It's just memories that are very special to me.
Cool beans. Well, thank you for that, Erica. Nigel, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, one of the lessons the most impressionable years of a man's life or a person's life is when they're young kids, from 0 to 13 or 10. One of the things that really makes me angry today is that there's such a divide amongst people that all this nonsense that's going on today is actually unnecessary. All we've got to do is sit around a table, talk, because we all come from different backgrounds. But what happens is that this other narrative comes in and destroys the history of all people, not just one group of people, but all people. And the lesson that I learned from the Congo as growing up is that I'm not unique. I'm just a small little cog in this grand scheme of humanity, and that we should really and I know it's impossible. It's an impossible task. It's just talk to your neighbors and talk to other cultures and what have you. I have nothing against anybody. I just hate it when they come with that narrative, and because I can't stand it, because I come from Africa and I grew up there. And I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to get into that. But I do not class myself as a European. I'm not European-minded. I'm African-minded. Okay, and I hope for the future for all of us is that we can escape any form of violence and the stuff that happened in the rest of Africa. Doesn't look like it. But anyway, yes. So my time in the Congo, brilliant. Wouldn't have changed it. Would I go back? Don't know.
Remember the heat and humidity, mosquitoes. They haven't left. Yeah. That's still there. So tolerable when you're 6, not so tolerable when you're 66. But Keith Alderson said, Leo Vignanza from Rendsburg says, my father, when he retired, went to all his siblings and scanned in every photo he could, gave all the kids a DVD. So awesome to have. Yeah, exactly. That's the advice I'm giving people now. So Nigel, your kids, if you've got grandkids, they ought to be listening to you and talking to you and hearing stories of growing up there, so that those things continue. It's the same. It's
my eldest son that got onto recording and archiving my folks' history and my history.
Brilliant.
So they know they can go back because I've got 2 grandkids, so they can pass on the story to their kids. That's awesome. There's that continuity, so they know our history.
Now, just one very important question: the son that archived, is that the one that keeps breaking things? Is it?
No, this is my eldest one.
I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I'm house sitting at the moment. This is his house. He's down in the Cape. He's taken his family down there for a week or something. So I'm at his house at the moment. So that's where I am.
Gotcha. Keith says, guys, negotiate getting a few photos while your family's alive, or get copies as and when you can. My grandmother, for some strange reason, threw most photos away before she died. That's an important point, folks, because a lot of photographs, people never put dates and places and people's names on the back of them. So if you don't know these people because they were a generation removed or they were cousins, then you're lost to describe who they are. And then that's just such a shame. So it's important to capture that stuff. What I'd like to say now, go ahead,
Chris.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, sorry, just a quick one. Do it, because out of that, something will happen, which happened to us about a year ago. Is I discovered I had another family in Australia, purely by archiving the photographs and making inquiries and showing photographs to people that had been in that era. That somebody phoned me from America and said, "Are you so-and-so of so-and-so?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you know that you have another family in Australia?"
Wow.
So you never know what's going to come out of it. That's another story we can share sometime.
Absolutely. And last night I was doing genealogy while I was watching Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. I was multitasking and doing genealogy, and I discovered a whole passel of first cousins on my maternal side whom I never knew even existed, by going back and finding documents. And so now I've got more cousins to find out about. But so we're at 98 likes, so close to that triple figures, 98 likes. And,
2 more.
Two more. Let me say this.
2 more. Come on, guys. 2 more.
I want to thank both my guests, Erica and Nigel, for joining us and sharing their experiences growing up in the Belgian Congo in 2 very different locations, but apparently with the same damn weather, but 2 very different locations. So I guess you couldn't get away from the rain no matter where you go in the Congo. But thanks a lot for that. And just to let people know, there will be a Night Owls edition today. But in the meantime, once I get off here, I'll be doing an unannounced live stream, a short one. 15 to, probably 30-minute long live stream. It's going to overlap with Ronaldo's program. So my apologies to folks that want to watch both. You don't have to come watch mine live if you don't want to. You can watch it after the fact. The reason I'm doing a live stream is because I'm going to put up a video that was put together. It was just released today from Epic Times about fraud in Pennsylvania. And as I play the video, I'm going to have myself on the screen. I'm going to pause it and offer analysis about this new video talking about 400,000 votes stolen from Donald Trump, supposedly, purportedly. So I'm going to do that live stream, which was unannounced. So if you want to catch that, you're welcome to join us for that. And that'll be shortly, probably within the next 15 minutes after I go off air. And I'll do it for probably 30 minutes or less. And then we'll do the Night Owls edition. But anyway, so again, many thanks to Nigel and to Erica. Really appreciate you guys being on here. It just goes to show that people make assumptions about how people look and based on their appearance. So if people look at you guys in Africa, they go, oh, look, Europeans, or oh, look, white folks. But you both grew up in the Congo, but in very different circumstances. I mean, Nigel's dad is English, and mom is a Walloon, and Erica's mom, wait, which one's? One of them's from Switzerland. And one of them's,
My dad is from Switzerland.
Okay, your dad is from Switzerland, your mom is from Belgium, right?
That's it. Yeah.
All right, so there you go. And you grew up in different parts of Congo, and you wound up in South Africa, and neither one of you could speak the damn language you got there. And poor Nigel didn't even know how to wear shoes when he arrived. That's how bad things were. But anyway, so Olaf says, fantastic stream. Love the history and get to know the Congo through others' eyes and experience. Well, there you go, folks. We're going to end it here. I'll ask both my guests to head off the screen, and I'll wrap up. And thank you guys so much for this experience today. I really enjoyed it, and I think the audience got a lot out of it. By the way, we hit 101 likes, so bye danki. Kia le bois. Merci, mes frères. C'est très gentil de tous les gens. Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Merci beaucoup.
You're welcome. All right, thanks, guys.
Salut, mes amis. Salut.
All right, there you go, folks. Let's get them. Nigel's blushing, but I think the reason Nigel should blush is that model photo. That was impressive. He was kind of hot looking. I mean, the lime green jacket aside, he's a good looking oak. All right, guys, I'll let you drop off, and then I'll wrap up. So go ahead in the waiting room.
Okay.
And just in case they can't get there on their own, I'll help them get there. Okay. That's not what I wanted. What's not happening here? Erica, you're still on the screen. I'm going to put you in the... There you go. All right, so... What's going on here? All right, folks, thanks a lot for tuning in. I really appreciate the support for the channel. Awesome. We got over 100 likes for this view. This was pretty cool. First interview of 2021. We started off right here with Nigel and Erica talking and reminiscing about their experiences growing up in the Belgian Congo. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot from it. Thanks, Nigel, for the photographs. Erica, thank you and Nigel for sharing your experiences growing up and what it was like. The Belgian Congo was a very different time. A lot of people will tell different parts of history, and particularly those who didn't experience it. So it's nice to get firsthand, first-person, primary source accounts of growing up in the Belgian Congo. Thanks a lot, folks. Again, I will be back on the air shortly, and I'll be showing a video that was published by Epic Times today about vote theft in Pennsylvania. And this is new votes we haven't talked about before. This is all has to do with the counties reporting votes and actual votes numbers being taken away from Donald Trump. So new evidence of more fraud, and so that'll be a live stream coming up shortly, unannounced. If you can join me, you're welcome to join me, and it'll be me discussing this, playing the video. So there you go. This was pretty cool. I enjoyed this one. I'll make sure I archive this video after the fact because it was pretty interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And with that, we're going to close it out here, and you guys can catch me shortly. And again, there will be a Night Owls edition tonight if you want to tune in for that, where we'll cover the news of the day. So thanks a lot, folks. God bless. And we'll catch you here shortly on Chris White Africa for a update on the 2020 elections, assuming YouTube doesn't cut me off.